The moment Director Victoria locked eyes with me across the packed conference room, I knew my carefully constructed world was about to crumble. "Elaine," she said, her voice carrying the weight of authority through the microphone. "To uphold our commitment to transparency and maintain the company's open image, I need you to stand up and tell everyone here about your wife." Gasps rippled through the 200 colleagues gathered for the quarterly all-hands meeting at Technova's Chicago headquarters, and my stomach twisted into knots as the secret I had guarded for 2 years was suddenly thrust into the spotlight. My hands trembled under the table, the simple gold band on my finger suddenly feeling like a lead weight. How had it come to this? I remembered the day I first met Adeline like it was yesterday. It was a rainy afternoon in Chicago 3 years ago, when I ducked into a small indie bookstore on Michigan Avenue to escape the downpour. She was behind the counter, her dark curls tied back in a messy bun, smiling at customers with a warmth that seemed to cut through the gloom. "Looking for something to warm the soul?" she asked, her voice soft and inviting. We started talking about books, then life, and before I knew it, hours had passed. Adeline was an artist by passion, working part-time at the shop to pay the bills, and her free spirit was a stark contrast to my structured life as a senior marketing manager. For months we met in secret, sharing coffee in hidden cafes and long walks along Lake Michigan. My family back in Ohio would never understand. My mother, a devout Catholic, had made it clear after I came out to her in college that this lifestyle was against God's plan. "Marriage is between a man and a woman, Elaine," she had said over the phone, her voice cracking with disappointment. "I pray you find your way back." Those words had haunted me, so I buried my truth deep, building a wall around my heart, until Adeline broke through with her quiet patience and fierce love. Our wedding was small, just a few close friends in a quiet courthouse downtown, no family invited. Adeline had wanted to invite her parents, who were supportive, from California, but I begged her to keep it low-key. "One day," I promised, but that day never seemed to come. At work I never mentioned her, wearing my ring on a chain under my blouse. Life was a delicate balance, but it was mine. Until Victoria Hale joined as the new director 6 months ago. She was all about authenticity and transparency, pushing for team-building exercises that felt more like interrogations. "We can't build trust if we're hiding parts of ourselves," she would say in meetings, her eyes scanning the room as if searching for secrets. I avoided her gaze as much as possible, but today in this mandatory meeting I couldn't hide anymore. The projector hummed behind her, displaying the new company values slide. Transparency, integrity, inclusion. Irony tasted bitter on my tongue. My mind raced back to last night when Adeline and I had sat on our tiny balcony overlooking the city lights. She had leaned her head on my shoulder, her fingers tracing patterns on my arm. "You seem distant lately, Elle," she whispered. "Is it work or is it still the fear?" I had sighed, pulling her closer. "Both. Mom called again yesterday, quoting scripture. I don't want to lose what we have by forcing the world to see it." Adeline had kissed my forehead softly. "I love you enough to wait, but I hate watching you carry this alone." Her words echoed now as Victoria waited for my answer, the entire room holding its breath. I opened my mouth, but no sound came. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows on faces I saw every day yet barely knew. Colleagues who laughed at my jokes in the break room now stared with a mix of curiosity and pity. My chest tightened with the familiar weight of shame I thought I had buried years ago. This wasn't just about a job. This was about the fragile peace I had built between the daughter my mother prayed for and the woman I had become with Adeline. Victoria cleared her throat, her patience thinning. "Elaine, we're all waiting. This is about setting an example for the team." Her tone was calm, but the underlying command was unmistakable. I felt the eyes of the room pressing in like a physical force. In that instant, the careful compartments of my life collided, and I had no idea how to stop the wreckage. The silence stretched until it felt like the air itself was holding its breath. I gripped the edge of the conference table, my knuckles turning white. I have a wife," I finally managed, my voice barely above a whisper. A few murmurs rose, but Victoria raised her hand for quiet. "Louder, please. We value openness here." My face burned as I repeated the words louder this time. "I have a wife. Her name is Adeline." The room shifted uncomfortably, some colleagues nodding in awkward support, others looking away as if they had witnessed something too intimate. Victoria smiled thinly. "Thank you, Elaine. See everyone? That's transparency. It builds trust." but her eyes lingered on me a second too long, as if she knew there was more to the story. I sank back into my chair, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. The rest of the meeting blurred into a haze of slides and updates I couldn't focus on. All I could think about was the phone call I would have to make later, and the look on Adeline's face when I told her what had happened. After the meeting ended, I slipped out quickly, avoiding the sympathetic glances and the few hesitant "you okay?" questions. In the elevator, I pulled out my phone and texted Adeline. "Meeting was rough. Need to talk tonight. Love you." Her reply came instantly. "I'm here. Whatever it is, we face it together." That simple message steadied me as I drove home through the evening traffic, the city lights blurring past. Our apartment in Lincoln Park was quiet when I arrived, the smell of garlic and herbs welcoming me from the kitchen. Adeline turned from the stove, her apron dusted with flour, her smile fading when she saw my face. What happened?" I collapsed onto the couch and told her everything, the forced announcement, the room full of eyes, the way Victoria had pushed. Adeline listened without interrupting, then sat beside me, taking my hands in hers. "She had no right," she said softly but firmly. "Your privacy isn't a company asset." I leaned into her, the warmth of her body a reminder of why I fought so hard to protect us. "I know, but what if this changes everything at work? What if word gets back to my family?" Adeline sighed, pulling me closer. "Your mom already suspects something. Maybe it's time to stop hiding from everyone." Her words stung because part of me knew she was right, but the fear of losing the fragile thread connecting me to my childhood home was too strong. We had argued about this before, late into the night, her liberal California upbringing clashing with my Midwest Catholic roots. The next morning at the office, the atmosphere felt different. Whispers followed me in the hallway, and a few people I barely knew offered awkward congratulations. Victoria called me into her office before lunch. "I hope yesterday wasn't too uncomfortable," she said, closing the door. "But honesty strengthens teams. I grew up in a very traditional household myself. My parents believed certain things were wrong until they saw the person, not the label." Her voice softened for a moment, and I glimpsed a crack in her armor. "I'm not the villain here, Elaine. I just want us all to be real." I left her office more confused than angry. Was she right? Was hiding my marriage a lie that hurt the team? Or was forcing me to speak a violation that hurt me? The questions churned through my day, making every email and meeting feel heavier. By evening I was exhausted. Adeline and I cooked dinner together, the simple rhythm of chopping vegetables and stirring sauce, a small island of peace. "I keep thinking about what Victoria said," I admitted. "Maybe transparency isn't the enemy." Adeline set down her knife, her eyes searching mine. "Transparency is beautiful when it's chosen ill. When it's demanded, it's just control wearing a nice suit." That night, as we lay in bed, her head on my chest, I stared at the ceiling, replaying every moment. The religious guilt my mother had planted years ago mixed with the professional pressure, until I couldn't tell which voice was louder. Adeline's breathing slowed into sleep, but mine stayed restless. Tomorrow would bring more stares, more questions, and I had no idea how much longer I could balance the two worlds I lived in. The following week, the tension at work thickened like fog rolling off the lake. Colleagues who once chatted casually now hesitated, as if afraid to say the wrong thing. My inbox filled with polite but probing messages. "Proud of you for sharing. And if you ever want to talk about it." I appreciated the support, but each one reminded me that my private life was now public property. Victoria walked the halls with renewed purpose, stopping by desks to praise authentic connections. I wondered if she saw the unease she had created, or if she truly believed this was progress. At home, Adeline tried to lift my spirits. She surprised me with tickets to a local art exhibit featuring queer artists, her way of reminding me that our love belonged in the light. We wandered the gallery hand in hand for the first time in public, her thumb stroking mine reassuringly. "See," she whispered in front of a vibrant painting of two women embracing. "This is us. Not something to hide." Her eyes sparkled with hope, and for a moment I let myself feel it. But on the drive home, my phone buzzed with a missed call from my mother. The voicemail was short. "Elaine, your cousin mentioned something about work. Call me." My stomach dropped. The news had already traveled. The conversation with Mom was exactly as I feared. "How could you announce something like that to strangers?" she asked, her voice trembling with hurt and anger. "The Bible is clear, Elaine. I've prayed for you every night, And this is how you repay me. I tried to explain that I hadn't chosen to speak, but she cut me off. You chose that life. You chose to marry a woman. Don't blame your boss for your decisions. The call ended with her usual prayer and a heavy silence that pressed on my chest long after I hung up. Adeline found me on the balcony, tears stinging my eyes. She'll come around, she said, wrapping her arms around me, but her voice lacked conviction. Back at work, the pressure escalated. Victoria scheduled one-on-one check-ins with several team members, including me. I'm hearing some discomfort in the ranks, she admitted during our meeting. But discomfort is how we grow. Your honesty set a precedent, Elaine. Own it. Her words felt like both praise and warning. I left wondering if my silence had been selfish or if her demand had been cruel. The gray area blurred everything. That evening, Adeline and I sat at the kitchen table with glasses of wine. Maybe I should have refused, I said, staring into the deep red liquid. Stood up for my right to privacy. Adeline reached across the table. And risk your job? Your promotion? I hate that you're in this position, but I'm proud you survived it. Her support was unwavering, yet I sensed her own frustration growing. She wanted openness for us, not forced exposure. The conversation turned into a gentle debate, neither of us willing to declare the other wrong. By Friday, the office buzzed with rumors of an upcoming town hall. Victoria had announced it as a space for continued transparency. I dreaded it. Adeline noticed my distraction during dinner. Whatever happens next, we face it together, she promised, kissing my forehead. But as I lay awake that night, the weight of every choice pressed down. My mother's faith, my career, my love for Adeline, all pulling in different directions. I had no map for this, and the path ahead felt darker than ever. The town hall was packed, the same conference room now feeling smaller under the weight of expectation. Victoria stood at the front, her posture confident. Today we continue our journey of openness, she began. Last week Elaine shared something personal, and it strengthened us all. Let's build on that. My name echoed and heads turned. I sank lower in my seat, wishing I could disappear. Then Victoria looked directly at me again. Elaine, would you elaborate on how your marriage has influenced your work perspective? For the team's benefit. The room waited. My mouth went dry. Before I could respond, Taylor from accounting stood up, her chair scraping loudly. With respect, Victoria, this has gone too far. Elaine shared once because you asked. Forcing more isn't transparency, it's coercion. She has a right to her private life without it becoming company entertainment. Gasps filled the air. Victoria's face tightened. Taylor, sit down. This is about building trust, not hiding behind privacy. Taylor didn't sit. Trust isn't forced. I've watched colleagues whisper about Elaine all week. Is that the inclusive culture we want? Or are we just trading one set of judgments for another? Her voice was steady but passionate. And let's be honest, some of us have our own secrets. Demanding everyone expose them doesn't make us better, it makes us afraid. The room erupted in murmurs. Victoria's cheeks flushed. If you can't support our values, Taylor, perhaps this isn't the place for you. The argument escalated quickly. Taylor pointed out company policy on non-discrimination and how forcing personal revelations could invite legal issues. Victoria countered that authenticity was core to our mission after last year's PR crisis. Neither backed down. Higher-ups in the back row shifted uncomfortably. Finally, Victoria threw up her hands. If my leadership is questioned this publicly, then maybe I should step aside. The words hung in the air. A senior VP stood quietly and nodded once. Victoria stared at the room, her shoulders dropping. Effective immediately, I resign. I believed in this, but clearly not everyone does. She gathered her notes and walked out, the door clicking shut behind her like a period at the end of a painful sentence. Silence swallowed the room. Taylor sat down, her hands shaking slightly. Colleagues looked at me with a mix of shock and relief. I sat frozen. The protector I never asked for had just appended everything. The meeting ended in chaos, people filing out, whispering. I caught Taylor in the hallway. Why did you do that? I asked. She shrugged. Because no one should be forced to bare their soul for a paycheck. I've been there. It wasn't right. Her eyes held no regret, only quiet conviction. Driving home, I replayed every word. Victoria wasn't evil, she truly thought openness healed. Taylor wasn't reckless, she believed privacy protected. Both had valid points, yet both had caused pain. Adeline met me at the door, her face pale after my frantic text. I fell into her arms, the weight of the day crashing down. "It's over," I whispered. "But at what cost?" She held me tight, the scent of her shampoo grounding me. For the first time I wondered if standing up had saved me, or just broken something else. News of Victoria's resignation spread like wildfire through the office by Monday. Emails from HR announced an interim director and a period of reflection on company culture. Colleagues approached me cautiously, some thanking me for sparking change, others avoiding eye contact altogether. Taylor became an unlikely hero and a target depending on who you asked. I kept my head down, focusing on deadlines, but the internal storm raged louder than ever. My mother called again that evening, her voice colder than before. "Your boss resigned because of you, Elaine? What kind of influence are you having?" I tried to explain, but she interrupted. "God works in mysterious ways, but this feels like punishment for your choices. I love you, but I can't condone this." The line went dead, leaving me staring at the phone, tears blurring the screen. Adeline found me on the couch. "She'll come around eventually," she said, but her own eyes showed doubt. "We spent the night talking about lost the family. I might never fully have the career path now uncertain." Adeline opened up too. "I've been patient, Elle, but watching you carry this guilt hurts me too. I want us to live openly, not just survive quietly." Her words stung because they echoed my own fears. We argued gently, neither raising our voices, but the tension was real. "Am I selfish for wanting privacy?" I asked. "Am I selfish for wanting truth?" she replied. We fell asleep without resolution, the space between us wider than the bed. At work the following days brought more fallout. A promotion I had been eyeing was quietly postponed pending cultural alignment. Taylor stopped by my desk one afternoon. "I didn't mean to make things harder for you," she said. "I just couldn't watch it happen again." I nodded. "You stood up for me when I couldn't." "Thank you. But now everything feels broken." She smiled sadly. "Sometimes doing the right thing breaks things first. The question is what we rebuild." Her words lingered long after she left. That weekend Adeline and I drove to the lakefront park, where we had our first real date. The sun dipped low, painting the water gold. We walked hand in hand openly for the first time since the meeting. "I'm sorry for pushing," she whispered. "I'm sorry for hiding," I answered. We sat on a bench watching the waves, and for a moment the conflicts felt smaller. But the losses were real: my mother's distance, the office whispers, the strain in our own home. I had to accept that choices, even the ones that seemed right, carried consequences I couldn't control. Monday brought an email from HR inviting me to a mediation session. The company wanted to learn from the incident. I stared at the screen, wondering if any good could come from the wreckage Victoria, Taylor, my family, and I had all contributed to. Adeline kissed my cheek before I left for the meeting. "Whatever happens, we choose each other." Her words gave me strength, but the path forward still felt uncertain. The mediation session was smaller than I expected, just me, Taylor, the interim director, and an HR representative. No accusations, only careful questions about how policies could better balance transparency with respect. Taylor spoke calmly about the fear her stand had created for others. I shared the personal cost, the family rift, the nights of doubt. The interim director listened, nodding. "We got it wrong," he admitted. "Forcing openness undermined the very trust we sought." No one was fired, no one was celebrated. Just quiet acknowledgement that good intentions had caused real harm. I left the building feeling lighter yet heavier. The company would move forward with new guidelines, but my life had changed forever. Mom's silence stretched into weeks, though I sent weekly messages hoping for a crack in the wall. Adeline and I grew closer through the pain, learning to argue without pulling away. One evening she surprised me with a small canvas. She had painted two figures standing back to back, yet holding hands. "We don't have to face the same direction to move forward together," she said. I hung it above our bed, a daily reminder. Months passed. The whispers at work faded, replaced by genuine conversations. Taylor and I became friends, sharing lunches and stories. I learned she had lost her own family over similar truths years ago. Standing up wasn't about being right, she told me once. It was about refusing to let someone else decide my worth. Her words helped me forgive the chaos. I had blamed myself for Victoria's resignation, for Mom's hurt, for the strain with Adeline. But responsibility wasn't the same as blame. I had chosen silence for too long, and when forced to speak I froze. Each of us, Victoria with her ideals, Taylor with her protection, Mom with her faith, had acted from deeply held beliefs. None fully right, none fully wrong. Adeline and I took a weekend trip to the Indiana dunes, the same place we honeymooned in secret. Walking the beach at sunset, she slipped her hand into mine. "No more hiding," she said softly. "But no more forcing either. Just us choosing each day." I pulled her close, the wind whipping around us, and for the first time the weight felt bearable. I had lost pieces of my old life, but gained a deeper understanding of love and courage. The awakening didn't come with triumph. It came with acceptance of the mess, and the quiet decision to keep choosing us anyway. As I sat on our balcony months later watching the city lights with Adeline's head on my shoulder, I reflected on every choice that led here. The forced announcement, the brave defense, the painful conversations, the slow healing. But as I sat there holding Adeline's hand and reflecting on the pieces of my life I'd lost, and the strength I'd gained, I couldn't help but wonder. Was the courage to stand up for one's truth always the right choice, or did it sometimes demand a price too high for everyone involved?